so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Well, what a wonderful reception. I guess when the sun comes out around here, everybody gets pretty excited. But I love you back. Now, I have to say, the last time I was in Maine was before the caucuses. It was a little cooler here, as I recall. But it is wonderful to be back. There's some people I want to say a few nice things about it. First of all, we could not have a better small business administrator than your own neighbor, Karen Mills. And so please give her a huge round of applause. She's doing a great job. And I think she has more than a few folks from Maine on her staff. She's kind of stocked them all over the place. And everybody's doing a great job over at the SBA. I want to thank you. I want to thank one of the finest governors in the country, John Baldacci, who is here. Thank you, John. Where is he? There he is right there. Thank you. Your outstanding mayor, Nick Mavadonis, is here. And we've got two great champions for Maine whose tireless efforts have helped working families all across this state and all across this country. Congresswoman Shelley Pingree and Congressman Mike Michoud. All right, it is good to be back in Maine. And I want everybody to remember, when I came here during the campaign, I made a promise. And it wasn't a promise about any particular issue. It was a promise that our government would once again be responsive to the needs and aspirations of working families, of America's middle class. It was a promise that Washington would concern itself not just with the next election, but with the next generation of Americans. Now, keeping that promise is even more critical now, at a time when so many families and so many small business owners are still struggling here in Maine and all across the country. Every time I visit with workers in a factory, or families in a diner, every time I sit down and read letters from Americans across the country, I see and hear the same questions. Folks are asking, how am I going to find a job when I've only known one skill my entire lifetime and I just got laid off and I'm in my 50s? How am I going to retire when I keep spending my savings just to get by? Or trying to make sure that my kid can go to college and tuition keeps on going up? How am I going to make it when I'm stretched to the limits on my mortgage and on my bills? Those are the questions that I hear. And I want you to know we are working every single day to spur job creation and to turn this economy around. That's why we worked so hard over the last year to lift one of the biggest burdens facing middle-class families and small business owners, and that is the crushing cost of health care right here in America. And Mainers, I want you to know that last week, after a year of debate and a century of trying, health insurance reform became the law of the land. Last week. Last week. Because of folks like Shelley and Mike, it happened. Because of people like you, it happened. It happened because people had the courage to stand up at town hall meetings and talk about how insurance companies were denying their families coverage because of a pre-existing condition. It happened because folks wrote letters about how premiums had gone up 50 or 70 or 100% in some cases, and it was forcing them to give up their insurance. It happened because countless small business owners and families and doctors shared stories about a healthcare system that was working better for the insurance industry than it did for American people. And when the special interests sent an army of lobbyists to Congress and blanketed the airwaves with millions of dollars of negative ads, all of you mobilized and organized, and you refused to give up. And when the pundits were obsessed over what the polls were saying and who was up and who was down and what would this mean for Democrats or Republicans, you never lost sight of what was right and what was wrong. You knew it wasn't about the fortunes of one party, it was about the future of our country. And today, Portland, because of what you did, the future looks stronger and more hopeful than it has in some time. Now, over the last year, there's been a lot of misinformation spread about health reform. There's been a lot of fear-mongering, a lot of overheated rhetoric. If you turned on the news, you'd see that those same folks who were hollering about it before it passed, they're still hollering about how the world will end because we passed this bill. This is not an exaggeration. All right? John Boehner called the passage of this bill. We don't need to boo. I just want to give the facts. Called this passage of this bill Armageddon. You had others who said this is the end of freedom as we know it. So after I signed the bill, I looked around. I looked up at the sky to see if asteroids were coming. I looked at the ground to see if cracks had opened up in the earth. You know what? It turned out it was a pretty nice day. Birds were still chirping. Folks were strolling down the street. Nobody had lost their doctor. Nobody had pulled the plug on Granny. Nobody was being dragged away to be forced into some government-run health care plan. But the thing is, though, you have to love some of the pundits in Washington. Every single day since I signed the reform law, there's been another poll or headline said, "Nation still divided on health care reform. Polls haven't changed yet." Well, yeah. It just happened last week. It's only been a week. Can you imagine if some of these reporters were working on a farm and you planted some seeds and they came out next day and they looked and nothing's happened.